Hey everybody, welcome to my review of the newest movie by Yorgos Lanthimos. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. I don't know really how to say it. So he's the director of the new movie, Killing of a Sacred Deer. Now you may know him from Dogtooth or The Lobster, The Lobster being his most recent film with Colin Farrell. He reprises his role in Killing of a Sacred Deer here. Now I don't really know Yorgos too much or his work. Initially, I don't want to see Dogtooth. I've seen the trailers for it. I might see it someday. However, it looks like a little too much for me. And the first time I watched The Lobster, I was initially turned off. And so this movie, this director, I have a feeling has a very particular style that can turn a lot of people off very fast. However, I gave Lobster a second chance. Find it a lot more comical. It was definitely a dark kind of black comedy drama mixed with some thriller aspects involved, and that's something that I wanted to really continue with Killing of a Sacred Deer. So let me talk to you a little bit about some of the story. I'm not going to go too far into it, and then I'm going to talk to you about some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the things that I liked about the film, and some things I didn't, and then I'll give you my final score. Alright, so the movie starts off with Stephen, which is Colin Farrell's character. He's a surgeon, and the movie is very jarring. The very first scene, it's an open heart kind of surgery. It just immediately pans. The music's intense, and I'll get to that in a second. It just pans. It's dark for a little bit, and then it just pans into a beating heart, and it's just like, it's disgusting. It's kind of just repugnant. It's just really, it's just gross. But then it zooms out, and then you see that Colin Farrell just, he's a surgeon. He's been doing all this stuff, and he runs into Marston. And Marston is this really odd character. You may have remembered him from Dunkirk. I don't remember his name in Dunkirk. He was one of the kids in Dunkirk. But regardless, Marston is this really strange kid who's about 16 years old, and something happened to him, and you don't really know what. And Colin Farrell's kind of just like being this like kind of distant father. I don't know how to describe it exactly. It looks like he's taking care of the kid because more or less something happened, and you don't exactly know what. But moving on from that relationship, we have Colin Farrell's wife, which is Nicole Kidman, and we have two kids, and their names are Bob and Kim. Bob being the youngest little kid, and Kim being around 13, who they say a couple times just recently had her period. And these are some weird, strange, tonal aspects in this movie, and there's some really strange dialogue choices, and also I'll get to that in a second. But this movie is jarring as it builds to a certain point, and then you know exactly everything that's going on, and then it just spirals out of control. When I say you know everything that goes up, you know the relationship between Marston and Stephen, and you see like, oh, that's why that's that. Oh, that's crazy, that's insane. So there's a lot of odd things. So I know I wasn't really too descriptive on the story itself. I just don't want to explain too much because it's a mess. But there are some things that I want to talk about in this movie that were potentially pros or cons. By the way, normally I do a pros and cons section. This is actually something I'm thinking about mixing together. This is like a pros and cons. I'm just going to tell you my thoughts of some of the movie characteristics that I thought were interesting or intriguing or a little shocking at the same time. First being, this movie is unsettling, uneasy, and very odd. It's a weird movie. Like I said earlier, it's a little morally repugnant. It's kind of just, you have to be kind of prepared to watch a Yorgos movie. Honestly, like I said, when I watched The Lobster, I didn't really like it the first time I saw it. So this is another one of those things like, I might have to watch this again to see how I feel about this. And then moving on from there, the dialogue seems a little bit to be realistic, but also over-exaggerated. It's really strange. It's like talking to someone you don't know very well, and you interrupt each other sometimes, or the dialogue, you don't really know where it's going. It's really hard to explain. Sometimes it's very realistic and very situational, and sometimes it's over-exaggerated, and like that's something a weird character would say, and that's something you can totally see in Marston, who just has the most awkward conversations. There's some comical moments too in it, at least in my eyes, dark comical moments, that, especially with the spaghetti scene, on eating it, talking to Nicole Kidman, it was a really strange scene, but also kind of silly at the same time. So it's a cross between realistic and over-exaggerated. From there, let's talk about the score. The score is super jarring. but also tonally fits the movie very, very well. It kind of complements it. It's a complementary kind of thing. There's a lot of moments where it gets suddenly super loud. It actually sometimes overtakes the dialogue, which I think is really interesting take on adding score into the movie, where it's just overtaking everything. It's almost like a psychological horror that you're watching. You're seeing this thing unfold, and there's nice classical pieces, but it just builds an intensity, and it just builds the entire movie. And that's something I liked about the score. And that score also had a lot of silent sequences too. Sometimes the music just cut out, and so did the dialogue, and you just hear this white noise. And that's something that I thought was really interesting tonally, just to switch that moment. Sometimes it gets really, really loud, like I said, overtakes the dialogue, and sometimes it gets completely silent. And moving on from there, let's talk about the cinematography. Cinematography was very meticulous, it seemed, as it kept zooming in and out of certain particular moments. It really left you feeling intimate with some moments and also very distant with some moments. It's kind of like watching a nightmare unfold. You're watching this movie and these things are happening and you don't really know what's going on, but also at the same time you kind of have a sneaking suspicion that you do, and it's a strange thing that boils up to this climax, and then everything just bam, it hits it, and kind of just watch it unfold. But that camera work really shows that there's a lot of really great set pieces and set designs that I noticed that really just added to the attention of the movie, that I really enjoyed, but also at the same time was like, whoa, what's going on? I don't really know what's happening right now. And so moving on from there, so as I was saying, some of the pros in this movie kind of just are a lot of the intense sound effects, the camera work. Some of the acting was fantastic as well, especially Martin's character. He also acted so strangely and also fit his role so well, and it felt so uneasy the whole time. And Colin Farrell did a fantastic job too, trying to balance this world of, like, am I sane or am I not sane? He's constantly go back as he's conversing with Martin or just conversing with Nicole Kidman. Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman's relationship is just so strange as well. It just seems like a very odd relationship. Now, the most realistic relationship seems to be between Colin Farrell and his kids, but it also is really uneasy as well, as he's trying to just relate to them and trying to really take care of them. It's a really strange piece, this movie. There's a lot of cons that I could potentially say as well. Like I said, this is a movie not for everybody. This movie is, like I said, morally repugnant a little bit, and also just, it just irks a lot of people, I can tell. And if you're not ready for a Yorgos movie, it's just a strange thing. And so I would definitely say use caution when watching this movie, or at least enter with an open mind, or at least try to see it from a kind of surrealistic nightmare. This movie is very surreal. It's a meditation on surrealism, and I haven't seen surrealism in a lot of things. And so this is something that I really enjoyed, but I had to watch it again. So initially I think I'm going to give this movie a 3 out of 5. I definitely would recommend this movie. Definitely go watch this movie somehow, in some kind of capacity, at least once. Maybe revisit it. Maybe that's what I did with The Lobster. And so, I mean, this movie was actually really good. I actually really enjoyed The Lobster. It made it a lot better. The second viewing, of course. So I want to hear your thoughts down below on The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Was it a strange movie for you? Was it a good movie? Were you surprised? Were you repulsed? Also, give me a like, comment, share, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. I'm not jonesing around.